What if every argument, every secret, every betrayal in your family was orchestrated by someone watching from the shadows? When a woman inherits her late uncle's estate, she discovers hidden microphones and cameras in every room, and realizes her family was manipulated into chaos for years. When her uncle Henry died, Mario expected little more than a few dusty antiques and a stack of old books. The family had always considered Henry eccentric, brilliant, reclusive, and a little too interested in everyone else's business. Mara, a freelance writer with a taste for mystery, was the only one who'd kept in touch. So when the will named her as the sole heir to his sprawling Victorian estate, the rest of the family was shocked, and more than a little jealous. The house was a labyrinth of creaking floorboards, stained glass windows, and rooms that seemed to shift with the light. Mara moved in on a rainy afternoon, her footsteps echoing through empty halls. She felt a strange comfort in the solitude, but also a prickling sense of being watched. The family gathered for the reading of the will, their faces tight with old resentments. Henry had left each of them a cryptic letter, but the house itself was Mara's alone. As she unpacked, Mara found oddities everywhere: a locked study, drawers full of labeled cassette tapes, and a wall safe behind a faded portrait. The air was thick with secrets. That night, as she explored the house by flashlight, she noticed something odd: a tiny red light blinking in the corner of the library. She traced it to a hidden camera, expertly installed and nearly invisible. Her heart pounded as she realized it wasn't the only one. Every room had a camera, every hallway a microphone. The house wasn't just a home, it was a surveillance hub. Mara's shock turned to dread as she began to search for more evidence. In the locked study, she found shelves lined with tapes, each labeled with dates and names: her mother, her cousins, her own childhood nickname. There were drawers full of transcripts, folders of annotated arguments, and a wall map covered in colored pins and string. Henry had been watching them for years. She played the first tape, her hands trembling. The audio was clear: her parents arguing in the kitchen, her uncle's voice whispering through a hidden speaker, stoking the flames. "Did you hear what she said about you? He's always been jealous." Mara's blood ran cold. Henry hadn't just watched, he'd intervened, planting rumors and lies, manipulating conversations from behind the walls. The more Mara listened, the more she realized how deep the manipulation went. Family feuds, broken marriages, even her own falling out with her brother, all had been orchestrated by Henry's invisible hand. The estate was an echo chamber, amplifying every slight and suspicion until the family tore itself apart. Determined to understand the full extent of her uncle's scheme, Mara spent days cataloging the tapes and transcripts. She mapped out the timeline of family conflicts, matching each blow-up to a corresponding recording. The evidence was overwhelming. Henry had engineered every major rift, using his surveillance system to gather ammunition and his knowledge of psychology to push the right buttons. She found scripts for phone calls, forged letters, and even fake news clippings designed to sow distrust. Henry had played the family like chess pieces, moving them into position for maximum chaos. Mara's anger grew with every discovery. She remembered the Christmas when her parents stopped speaking, the cousin who vanished after a bitter argument, the way her own relationships had crumbled under the weight of suspicion. Mara realized her uncle's legacy was not just a house full of secrets, but a family broken by manipulation. She wondered if it was too late to undo the damage, or if the echo chamber would haunt them forever. Mara knew she couldn't keep the truth to herself. She called a family meeting, inviting everyone to the estate. The atmosphere was tense, old wounds simmering beneath the surface. Mara played a selection of tapes, letting her relatives hear Henry's voice whispering lies into their ears. The reactions were explosive: denial, anger, tears. Some refused to believe it, insisting the tapes were fake. Others broke down, realizing how deeply they'd been manipulated. Her mother wept, apologizing for years of coldness. Mara's brother stormed out, unable to face the truth. Cousins accused each other of betrayal, old arguments reigniting in the shadow of Henry's ghost. Mara tried to mediate, but the damage was done. The family was a patchwork of pain, stitched together by secrets and lies. But as the night wore on, something shifted. The siblings who had once been enemies began to talk, sharing memories and regrets. Mara saw a glimmer of hope, a chance to rebuild what Henry had tried so hard to destroy. Haunted by the question of why, Mara dug deeper into Henry's past. She found diaries hidden in the attic, filled with rambling entries and paranoid theories. Henry wrote of a childhood spent in fear, of parents who played favorites and siblings who betrayed him. He described his surveillance as a way to protect the family from itself, convinced that only he could see the truth. But the diaries grew darker, revealing a mind unraveling. Henry became obsessed with control, convinced that every argument was a threat, every secret a weapon. He wrote of the experiment, a plan to prove that families, left unchecked, would always destroy themselves. Mara realized her uncle's genius had curdled into madness, his love twisted into something monstrous. She felt a strange pity for Henry, but also a burning need to break the cycle. She vowed to dismantle the echo chamber, to free her family from the prison he'd built. Mara began the painstaking process of removing the cameras and microphones. She smashed the hidden speakers, pulled wires from the walls, and burned the scripts and forged letters. Each act felt like an exorcism, driving Henry's influence from the house. She invited her family to help, turning the cleanup into a ritual of healing. Together, they tore down the surveillance system, reclaiming their privacy and their trust. Mara's mother found the courage to apologize to her children, her brother forgave old grievances, and the cousins began to reconnect. The house, once a fortress of secrets, became a place of laughter and forgiveness. But Mara knew the scars would remain. The echo chamber had shaped them all, leaving wounds that would take time to heal. She wondered if they could ever truly escape Henry's shadow. Word of Henry's surveillance spread beyond the family. Mara debated going public, torn between protecting her relatives and exposing the truth. In the end, she decided to share their story, anonymously at first, hoping to warn others about the dangers of unchecked control and manipulation. The story went viral, sparking debates about privacy, family, and the ethics of surveillance. Mara received messages from strangers who had experienced similar betrayals, and from experts who praised her courage. The family faced scrutiny, but also support. They became advocates for privacy rights, speaking at conferences and helping others recognize the signs of manipulation. Mara found purpose in her pain, turning her uncle's legacy into a force for good. As the months passed, the family began to heal. Mara's mother started therapy, her brother moved back to town, and the cousins rebuilt their relationships. They held regular gatherings at the estate, filling the rooms with music and laughter. The house, once a symbol of fear, became a sanctuary. Mara wrote a memoir about her experience, sharing the lessons she'd learned about trust, forgiveness, and the power of truth. The book became a bestseller, inspiring others to confront their own echo chambers. The family planted a garden in the backyard, dedicating it to those lost to secrets and lies. Each flower was a promise to speak honestly, to listen with compassion, and to never let fear rule their lives again. Years later, the estate was transformed. The surveillance system was gone, replaced by open windows and sunlit rooms. Mara hosted workshops on communication and trust, helping families break free from cycles of suspicion. The house became a community center, a place where people could gather to share their stories and find support. Mara found peace in her new role, grateful for the chance to turn pain into purpose. She honored her uncle's memory, not for his genius, but for the lesson he'd taught her about the dangers of control. The family's legacy was no longer one of secrets, but of healing and hope. On the anniversary of Henry's death, Mara stood in the garden, surrounded by family and friends. She remembered the years of silence, the arguments and betrayals, the pain of discovering the truth. But she also remembered the laughter, the forgiveness, and the love that had grown in the echo chamber's wake. As the sun set, Mara released a handful of wildflower seeds into the breeze. The echo of her uncle's voice faded, replaced by the sound of laughter and the promise of a new beginning. The house was finally free. If you believe in the power of truth and breaking the cycle of manipulation, share this story with someone who needs hope. What would you do if you discovered your family was being watched and controlled? Let us know in the comments below.